I'm here today with Dave Gray, the Vice President of Business Development at Anchor Loans. Dave, thanks so much for taking some time with me today.
Brandon, for you and LaDonna, there's not much I wouldn't do for you guys.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So, what do you do with Anchor Loans? Tell us a little bit about your company, your role at the company, kind of just
Okay.
to set the stage for our conversation today.
Okay. So what do I do? Pretty much all things, right? So Anchor Loans is a private capital lender. We focus on non-owner occupied business purpose loans, very specific niche in
Okay.
the mortgage industry. We're owned by Pretium as a parent company. We're about a $3 billion a year company, specifically again in this niche, right?
Right.
And obviously, listen, 15 years ago this particular niche was all but non-existent. Today it's become, I don't know, something like a $300 billion
Wow.
part of the mortgage industry, so it's growing rapidly.
That's amazing. Well, like I said, I'm so grateful you're here because I feel like of all the people that I know in the mortgage industry, you're probably the most qualified to talk about what we're going to talk about, what we're going to share with the audience today. We're
Okay.
talking about rehabilitation, renovation loans, and most loan officers, when they hear those terms, are going to think about the Fannie Mae home style loan, the FHA 203K. And yes, those are valid, in a sense, still considered traditional financing solutions, but you're in a space and in a market where you've got other solutions that you bring to the table to kind of help solve for the challenges that we're facing. That's kind of what I wanted to start out with here, Dave, is
Okay.
what do you see in the current market, in the current real estate market, as our biggest challenge when it comes to housing with the shortage, aging housing stock? Like, what's going on out there? What are we trying to solve for here?
Oh man. So there is, that's a loaded question, right? Because
Of
there's a
course.
number of different things that's happening all at the same time that's affecting our market, right?
Hmm.
The obvious is interest rates, right? Interest rates are high as a result of which, and it's not proportionate with people's salaries, right? So
Okay.
as a result of which, what you find is that the normal segment of the market that would be available and ready to buy right now can't because of interest rates.
Right.
Inflation, things is high, right? The cost of housing is high as well. That also is a factor. For as long as I've been in the business, there's been a shortfall of housing, right? Where there's low inventory all around. I mean, that's been, for as long as I've been in the business, 20 years, that's always been the same, right?
Hmm.
So there's a number of different things that's impacting our market, our business right now. I keep saying, with COVID, but what happened is that, like, when you look at coming through COVID, there's just been a number of people that, again, um, with being the affordability issue is a real one, right?
Right.
People can't afford to buy housing right now, and as a result of which, you find that more and more people are having to just stay put. I refinanced my house in 2021, like everybody else, with that
Hmm.
3% rate. You're not getting me out of my house unless it's feet first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a number of different factors that's impacting affordability. In 2021, we originated as in the country, we originated 50 million loans. Right?
Wow.
Do you know how many we did last year?
Not off the top of my head, but you do.
Round about 4 million. Right?
Yeah. Different.
So we're talking about 11 million drop off over the last 5 years.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So yes, there's a number of different factors that's impacting the market.
Got it. Got it. So what you're saying is we've got challenges, and what I was hearing is the affordability issue. If you want to live in a downtown urban area close to where your office is, you're going to face challenges in affordability for sure, right? But there's got to be opportunities for housing outside of these urban centers in maybe these ex-urban communities where there's a little bit more or less of an affordability challenge, I guess I should say, but maybe
100%. Yep.
there's more opportunity on the rehab and renovation side of things to get these houses up to code, to improve them, to bring in some new technology to improve against, climate change and those other things that we hear and we talk about. So
Yeah.
are
So
those a lot of the solutions that you would
yeah,
propose to a loan
absolutely.
officer, Dave? What?
Absolutely. So here's where we are, and I talked about the issues, right, and I kind of stopped there, right?
Right.
But here's what's happening in the market. So you're right. Once upon a time, we were encumbered with living close to where we work, right?
Right.
People were going into the office on a day-to-day basis, as a result of which they had to live within a 1 hour commute, half an hour commute, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Now, post COVID, right, more and more people are now working from home, right? And even those that are going back into the office, they're only going into the office maybe once or twice a week,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
As a result of which now people are more capable or able to live a little bit further out, right? They're now able to say, you know what, I can do that hour and a half commute on a morning because I'm only doing it twice a week.
Right.
The added benefit to that is that the further out you go, the cheaper the dirt, right? The
Okay.
reality is cement costs what it costs, steel costs what it costs, and so on, right? So when you're looking at the overall build of a house, the areas that you can affect are the cost of the dirt, right? And the further out you go, right, the cheaper the dirt gets. That's going to have an impact on the value of the house, right? And then the
Mhm.
cost of services, right? So, for
Mhm.
example, when you're looking at urban cities, the cost of getting zoning approved and the cost of getting permitting and all of that stuff is just
Right, the
higher.
regulatory costs.
There you go. There you go. And you use the term exurban communities because these are 10 years ago, we'd call them tertiary markets, right? Now they're
Okay.
now being rebanded as exurban communities. But here's what's cool. When you look at the last 3 years, right, leading, urban communities like downtown, areas, right?
Mhm.
Their growth that usually, again, 15, 20 years ago, the downtown areas would lead population growth, right? That's where everybody wanted to be.
Right, right.
Everybody wants to live in the city. And then
Mhm.
the outskirts kind of gets the overflow from what's left from the city, right?
Mhm.
Today, what is happening is that it's kind of made a switch, right? The urban communities are growing at a rate of about 9% per year, while
Wow.
exurban communities are growing at a pace of 14%, right?
Okay.
Not only are they leading in population growth, but they're also leading in housing starts. When you
Mm.
look at urban communities in terms of new product that's being put into urban communities, usually you're looking at around a 10%, just under 10% growth. In exurban communities with housing starts, you're looking at about a 13% growth, right? So people are understanding that they no longer need to be in these downtown areas.
Got
They
it.
can live further out, and their dollars is going to stretch much farther as well.
Okay. So now you've taught us where to look for the opportunity. It's not in the cities anymore, right? There's opportunities all around us outside of the cities. Now, as a traditional loan officer, when I think of rehab and renovation and all that goes into it, and new construction, finance, whatever we're talking about when it comes to fixing up or building a new home, I'm thinking about, well, how can I compete in that space against a large builder like a DR Horton or a Lennar, right?
Yeah,
And the reality that I've come to kind of acknowledge in my own business is I'm just not going to compete against those
correct,
guys, right?
correct.
But where my question for you, Dave,
Mhm.
is as a traditional loan officer, where can I compete? With which builders and contractors should I be partnering with, and how do I do that effectively?
Okay, so there's two things. You mentioned like the urban communities, and like,
Mhm.
so let me be very clear. Whilst the exurban or tertiary markets are growing at a faster pace than the urban communities are still growing as well. And here's how. There's really only two ways to solve the housing problem,
Okay.
right? One is for us to rehabilitate existing uninhabitable stock, right?
Okay.
So what I'm talking about is a fix and flip. I'm talking about the urban communities in the Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, cities like that, that you have literally blocks and blocks of uninhabitable homes,
Yeah,
right?
condemned housing, basically,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
One solution is to obviously rehab those homes and put them back into the market. And you find areas like Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit is still lagging behind, but you have those cities that are actually pushing to revitalize those communities, and
Sure.
that's solving part of the problem, right?
Right.
And then we already talked about the exurban communities. Now, to your point, you're right. A big misconception in the market is people think that new homes are built by large national builders, DR Hortons, K Hov, and Ryan. I'm going to throw it out there. DR Horton is the largest builder, right, in the
Right.
country. Do you have any idea how many homes they built? Well, not last year, but the year before, 2023.
A lot.
Okay, 67,000, right?
Okay.
So DR Horton, as the largest builder, they built 67,000 homes in 2023.
Wow.
KHOV was right behind them at 20,000. Now, let me put that into perspective for you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Um, there's, from all projections, from all reports, currently we need around 5 to 7 million homes today to satisfy the
Yeah.
current need today.
Is that per
Over
year,
the
Dave? We need
No, that
that?
is just what is
That's
that is what
total.
is
That's our
needed
total
today.
shortage.
Total,
Okay.
total, total. Over the next 10 years, it's projected that we'll need 18 million to satisfy the coming need. So what that means is that we need to be building 1.8 million new homes every year for the next 10 years in order
Okay.
to meet the demand, right?
And DR Horton's only putting out 67,000 of that.
There you go.
Okay.
Right? So, and when you look at in 2023, we did almost 5 million 5 million loans is what we originated. 30% of that was new construction. So about 1.2 million new construction loans is what we did in 2023, right?
Mhm.
Of that, only 30% was attributed to the national builders, the DR Hortons and all of that. So what that means is that 65 to 70% is all quote unquote mom and pop builders, right? So
Okay.
I'm circling back to your original question, which is, who are the builders that you should be targeting? Or as a loan officer, who are the builders you should be targeting? It's not the DR Hortons, it's not the Ryan Homes and all of that. Those guys can go to Wall Street themselves and get funding, right?
Yeah.
It is the local and regional builder. These are the guys that are building anywhere between 10 homes a year to 500 homes a year, right?
Okay.
And the great thing about it, Brandon, is that these are business people. And the one thing in business is what? No matter what you do now, you want to do more the year after
Right.
and more, right?
Growth. Yeah.
Exactly. When you're looking at, personally, I said I refinanced my house in 2021. Well, I don't remember the name of the guy that refinanced my house. The loan officer that did it. I know he worked at my credit union, right? That's
Yeah.
where my mortgage is. But the actual loan officer that I work with, I couldn't tell you his name, right?
Yeah. It's not that
Every single,
uncommon, right?
because again, it's like out
Yeah.
of sight, out of mind, right?
Right.
But with the loan officers that I work with on my investment properties, I know every single one of them by name.
Wow.
I'm personal friends with every single one of them. Why? Because it engages you more, right? You
Okay.
have to have that constant relationship going, because I'm constantly going to them with, "Hey, I just bought another property. I need you to refinance it," so on and so forth, right? So as a result of which, you're able to truly build and deepen your relationships by working on the
That's
investment
amazing.
side.
That's
Yeah.
an amazing point, Dave. I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I think we've identified now in our conversation kind of where to look and who to look to partner with in this space. And so here's the $1 million question, because this opportunity isn't new, right? What we're
It's not.
talking about here. So my question to you is, because you're in the day to day on this, why aren't more loan officers doing it? Right?
um, yeah. So and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but it's ignorance, right? It is. LOs are just not aware, right, of the opportunity in this market, in
Hmm.
this niche of the market, right? They're focused on the FHA loans, the VA loans, and so on, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And what happens is that people get tunnel vision, right? They fall into this sphere, and they just kind of go down that road, and they're not looking at anything else.
Yeah.
But what is happening right now, and I mentioned before, loan volume is down, right? Overall volume is down, right?
Hmm.
In 2021, we had 130,000 loan officers, I think. Today, I think we're down to like 80,000,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that's because, again, loan volume is down, and those people, they're like, okay, then they're what they used to do is no longer sustaining them, so now they're leaving the business.
Yep.
So if your focus, if this is your career, you need to be looking at, okay, then what is happening in the market that is going to help me with my business? How can I grow my business? And I would assert that this presents the opportunity for you to get not only deeper into the transactions and create deeper relationships, it also pays you exponentially. And here is how. Think about it like this. If you're working with one investor, yeah, and let's just say that that investor does 10 deals a year. Not only do you get those 10 deals, but with investors, remember, these properties either have to be sold or refinanced as rentals. So what that means is that they're doing another loan. So
Wow.
not only do you get those 10 deals, you also get an opportunity of the 10 takeouts as well, right?
Yeah.
But to answer your question, it's just a matter of a lot of people just aren't aware. When I it's amazing. Like whenever I have these conversations and I go out and I'll present to a group of loan officers, you can see the light bulbs going off, right?
Right.
Because it's just not something that they've thought about. It's not something that's on their mind, right?
Mhm.
But the minute you introduce it to them and they're like, hang on a second, and now they can see it, there are people that are truly building their business by not, and I'm not suggesting that you drop everything that you're doing and just start. That's what I do. This is my focus, right?
Right, right.
But what I am suggesting is for loan officers to start incorporating this into their business, because this is
Mhm.
how it's going to supplement what they're doing currently.
Yeah, add another pillar,
There
right?
you go.
And
There you
build
go.
upon that pillar. Well, Dave, solid gold from you today. I really appreciate you being on with us. Again, Dave Gray, the VP of Business Development over at Anchor Loans. Thank you so much, Dave. We really appreciated it.
Thank you much, Brandon.